Yeah, those were the days.
James Miller, or Jim to most, was an absolute wealth of knowledge when it came to Papillion and Sarpy County.
Always interested in history.
He was the historical part of this historical society, I think. Like, there were a lot of people that were not native Papillion people, and so he taught just about all of the newcomers what they should know. And
Shirley Ertz worked together with Jim in the basement of the Portal Schoolhouse for nearly 20 years.
And that's why it looks like it does. We'd work every Thursday night, and the last 2 years before COVID, we worked up here because he didn't want to do the steps. They're steep, and he was waiting for the elevator to be put in. Oh. That was his joke.
This map of Papillion's past is complete with buildings and homes from Jim's memories and research of the archives.
Think about it at home, and he'd come up with the names, and oh yeah, he knew that person, and he knew that person.
Knowing a person and their history was Jim's specialty.
Great at identifying photographs of people, as where I might spend hours trying to research who somebody is. He could just point and be like, oh, that's so-and-so, and give me the entire background and bio. So.
Sarpy County Museum Executive Director Ben Justman says Jim was one of the first people he met when he took over at the museum.
Weekly sessions about either Papillion history or Sarpy County. Given that we have the historic newspaper collection here, Jim would always go into the back either because I needed something or because curiosity piqued his interest in just going to the back.
Jim's father owned the Papillion Times until his death in 1949. That's when Jim and his two brothers took over running the paper.
With 100 years worth of newspapers here, he would know the year and sometimes the issue of something and be able just to, from muscle memory, pull that historical file out for what he was looking for.
Jim was always about knowledge. When he was 13, he entered the county spelling bee.
Yeah, he won the Sarpy County Spelling Contest, defeating 44 of the best spellers.
10 years later, he was in Korea.
He was a journalist for Stars and Stripes during the Korean War, and to hear some of his stories about being in Japan, occupied Japan at the time, it was great to flush that information out from him.
For years, Jim attended nearly every high school and little league event he could, writing the Sports Corner article each day. Jim retired from the newspaper business when he was 60. But he was always proud of what the Papillion Times meant for the community.
When we moved here in 1975, it was newcomers in town. And then there was some person that would call around and ask if they had news, what they did that week.
A lot of different factors.
And then they'd publish that, and it was just a good hometown paper.
No story about Jim would be complete without mentioning his love of baseball.
Talk baseball. He was sharp up right until the end. Huge San Diego Padres fan. I'm never quite sure why that was his team. But
Shirley's going to continue working on the map of old-time Papillion, but it certainly won't be the same without Jim there, supplying knowledge and a joke or two.
If I would call him about something and if he couldn't remember what it was, he'd go, I think I was out of town that day. So we all kind of decided that if he couldn't remember, it probably didn't happen. How should he be remembered? He was kind, wealth of knowledge. He was just kind.
For Papillion Now, I'm Michael Severe.